apps, tools, resources your students use in your homes at the end of the day. And we hope that there are lessons that we are teaching them about being responsible, how to find balance in using online tools or even technology in class, as well as the unplugged activities, as well as the activities where they actually have to talk with one another face to face. And we hope that those conversations are happening in your homes as well. And sometimes it's if you it may feel weird or uncertain uh, to have that kind of conversation because you've never done that before. You might have a teenage student, a high school student, and you really haven't established firm rules or guidelines or boundaries. And it may just be because you don't know all the things that they're getting access to, or you don't feel comfortable because you don't understand the technology yourself. So I want today's webinar to be a encouragement to you that you're not alone. I don't want you to feel like any of you are alone in, oh, everyone else gets it except me, or my child is the only one who has problems, not other students. So you are not alone. We're all here because all of us have a different level of understanding of how technology works or what is the best tool for my child or what are the best limits for my child. And so we as a school district have our rules and regulations and systems and protocols. And we want to empower you as families at home. You can certainly use the same exact rules and regulations in your own home, but we would hope that you have some sort of structure. And so this webinar is going to be about helping you begin conversations and help provide that structure to your students. So I have a couple of resources I wanted to share with you, and then we will get started here. So this first website you have on the screen is Google's Wellbeing website. So Google, one of the largest tech companies in the world, understands that you know how to Google search. They also own YouTube and a lot of other different small applications. But they also equally understand we need to address how do we help humans or people balance the use of technology. So just to kind of put some big buckets over what we're talking about here. So I clicked on this for families tab, and I'll go ahead and put this in the chat for those of you who are able to access it so you can explore yourself, follow along if you would like to. So if I look here, there's kind of some big buckets. I'm going to click on this open guide. And then these are the topics I would encourage you to talk through, maybe with your spouse, other adults, so that you can begin those conversations with your students. So deciding when and how to use certain devices, finding positive content, determining when your kids are ready for a device, using social media meaningfully and responsibly, making gaming positive and finding that balance for offline and online activities. So I could briefly talk about each one of these things, and if questions pop up in the chat, I'll let Dr. Cisneros kind of go through that there. But if you went to Google's website and clicked on these things, they would dig a little bit more into it. But just to touch quickly on deciding when and how to use devices, we have those conversations at our schools frequently. There are activities and projects that students do that, yes, there are technology tools that can be utilized. So our teachers are learning how to use these apps or how to implement them in their classrooms. And so students will open their Chromebooks and start working on those projects. But there's also times in the classroom where the teachers want the students to interact face to face. So they'll have them turn to what we call elbow partners or shoulder partners because they're right next to each other. They might talk at a team of 3 or 4 students, or they might actually have to stand up out of their seats and move around the room to have conversations. So instructionally and in our classrooms, teachers are making those kinds of decisions. And right, like our teachers have conversations about the topics of school, right? If you're learning how to read or write or learning how to do math or talking about science. But what do those conversations look like at home? Maybe you guys talk about what you're learning in school with your student, with the math, the English, the history, but you might have other topics, religion, charity, sports that your child plays. So it doesn't always have to be academically focused, but I would encourage you at home, what are those topics that you connect with your students so that it's not always device in front of us or I don't know what to talk about, so all right, go play on your own. But what are those topics that you can actually converse face to face with your student so that there's intentional no screen time? Yes, Dr. Cisneros.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I forgot to mention, um,
Oh, translation.
yes, for families who need the information in Spanish, we do currently have Yvonne, who is supporting with translation today. Si usted necesita esta información en español, actualmente está viendo, tenemos a nuestra intérprete, campeona que nos apoya siempre, Yvonne, aquí con nosotros. En la parte inferior de su pantalla verá un globo que dice Interpretation. Si no ve el globo que dice, o la esfera que dice Interpretation, puede buscar tres puntos que dicen More o más y a través de esa herramienta puede encontrar la opción de interpretación y cambia el idioma de inglés a español. Just wanted to make sure, Mr. Schwantz, that our community members who need the information in Spanish are able to access it. So sorry.
Oh, great. No, no, absolutely. And actually, perfect segue. So, how do you begin that conversation, right, with deciding when and how to use devices? So, if you attended our webinar last time, we talked about common sense education or common sense media. So, a treasure trove of different resources and places for you as parents to learn about the different applications and websites and movies that your students might be engaged in. But there's a particular site for family tech planners. So I'll go ahead and put that in the chat for you guys to access if you so choose. But notice how, so use these tech planners to help your kids think through important questions around tech use. What will I do? How much time do I spend? Am I making thoughtful choices? So Dr. Cisneros, go ahead and pick an age band here for ages 2 through 8, 9 through 12, or 13 plus. Go ahead.
Let's do 13 plus.
And notice how it's also in Spanish, so you can have those conversations in Spanish. So let's go ahead. I'll do it in English here. So if I click on this, it takes me to this PDF document that you can print if you'd like to, or I guess this might be an unplugged activity, but you can also certainly do it from a iPad or computer if you so choose. So again, so family expectations, we are safe. So staying safe with tech means not sharing private or financial information. So what are some examples of being unsafe, right? So it gives you some examples there. What's a change or commitment to safety we can make as a family, right? We are kind. What are examples of being unkind? What commitments can we make to choose to be kind? Thinking critically, making sure is everything we read on the internet true, right? We are healthy, having healthy relationships with tech. So what are some bad examples, and then what's a good example we can use? So this is just a simple way to launch your conversation. And remember, we are not alone. We're all in this together here. We're all learning how this works. Some of us might be farther along technology. Some of us may not have a deep understanding, but we all need to start and jump in because we want to make sure not only our students have good digital well-being or good lives with that balance of technology, we also want our teachers and our parents to show that balance, right? Students learn a lot more by observing how we act rather than telling them what to do or telling them how to act. So if we are able to model the way and show our students how we as adults show that balance and well-being, it goes a long way. I do want to go back here to watch this video just to, again, give you a little bit more context. This is a video filmed by Google that talks about this question: how does technology impact your life?
Oh gosh.
What do you think?
We're trying to get them more hands-on and not
only be able to solve problems on a screen.
Too much screen time and having to navigate that.
Gaming has become a big deal in our life.
When we sit down to watch a movie, I make it very clear that there are no devices. You're focusing on this one thing.
She just finally got a phone because we needed it for coordination.
She's lucky she gets a phone.
Are you guys allowed to use your mom's phone or computer or tablet?
No way!
Technology use is where we have the greatest generation gap right now. So when a young person looks at their technology use, they see primarily the benefits. Older people look at the same thing and they see danger.
So parents will come to me and oftentimes they're looking for very strict guidelines. So they'll come and say, what age should I buy my child a phone? What age can I let my child start playing video games? The reality is there aren't very clear-cut guidelines around this.
One important thing is to get your child to talk and to begin to express themselves. What is your child passionate about? What does your kid find exciting about this? And that way you'll be in a lot better position in order to support them in creating smart rules and guidelines.
So again, hopefully this gives you a touch of a context of there are other families asking these questions, right? Other families who are trying to figure this out to do what's best for their student, right? So again, this is more a resource to you. Again, I put it in the chat already. That Google has taken a stance of we want to help families have these kind of conversations. Dr. Cisneros, were there any questions I can answer, or should I just keep going forward?
As of now, Mr. Schwantz, we have not received any questions in the chat or Q&A. Full force ahead, sir.
All right. So yeah, finding positive content. So a lot of times, the biggest role or the biggest skill we could teach our students is where is the trusted content so that they can do research for schoolwork. That's a big thing we do at school. We use ClassLink, which we showed you last week. It's our big kind of one-stop shop for students log in there and they have access to a lot of the applications we use in school, including research databases of peer-reviewed, authentic resources, so your students don't have to go just type in Google about something or go to social media to look for something. They can find scholarly articles about things they're researching about. But notice how this says positive content, because a lot of times I know I feel the struggle, or maybe some of us experience this. We're driving on the freeway. Rarely do we ever stop and go, you know what, that person's driving so safe. Man, oh, that person used their turn signal so well. I'm so proud of them. Normally, we turn our heads to look at the car accident, the fire, why is there traffic? Normally, our mind goes to something's wrong, something's out of place. My mind needs to figure out what's going on, right? And so that level of engagement is just innate in us as humans, right? We're curious, we're interested, we want to find out why. And so how can we harness that rather than going to, oh, that person's life is worse than mine, or let me look at all these bad examples, like in our family tech planner that we looked at earlier, like this one here. It says, yes, let's start with bad examples, but then what is the commitment we need to make to the positive, right? So we shouldn't say, well, I don't want to be as bad as that person, or, oh yeah, that I don't want to like be, here's the way down line. I just to be just above it. No, set the standard. We want to have our students, and again, us as parents, reach for what is the most beneficial, advantageous, what's our goal we're really trying to reach for. And so to answer this actual question of how finding positive content, I would really turn to Common Sense Media again. So if I hover over, excuse me, that's for the educators here. So if I go to For Parents, and if I hover over, again, if I want to find movies, that would be best for my students. If I want to find TV shows that are best for my students, books, games, podcasts, apps, this will give you age-appropriate content that is positive. And then again, or if your students are watching it or they heard about it, they're coming to you saying, Mom and Dad, I heard about this fun show. And you could do your homework and say, that doesn't line up with our family's values, or that doesn't really seem to sync with the commitments we made to how we're going to be well digitally. So Common Sense Media, if you have another website, I'd love to hear about it through your email or through the chat. But I'd really say Common Sense Media is the best way for parents to really get a handle on what is it that students are watching or listening to, and so that you can get more information about those things.
Mr. Schwant,
yes,
a comment question in the chat. It says, then why in schools do they make the kids use the phone to check in for homework? I had to give my kid a phone the day before school.
So there's obviously a lot of context I don't know with this question, but there's also this, I don't know all the answers. So this is just me without much context, and I wouldn't want you to put this in the chat. I'll address it generally that if you ever have questions about, hey, my student says their teacher or the school says they need to do this, and you
at the meeting.
So, and if your student says, oh, this is what my teacher said to do or my school said to do, and you just have a question about that, you're like, that doesn't seem to line up with what I've heard before, or that doesn't seem like to be the same message I've heard before. You are more than welcome to check in with the school by contacting the school's secretary to reach out to a principal or an assistant principal. You can also use Parent Square to message your child's teacher. And you can utilize that to ask that question. Hey, my student said they needed to bring their phone to check in for homework. Is that true? Yeah. And your teacher will be able to respond to you directly and answer that question. Yeah. And that's something we're going to get to a little bit later, but I mean, just bring it up now while we're on the question, that great communication or having open lines of communication, not only with your student, but the other adults that you entrust to help raise your student, right? So we at school have values. Each school has a mission and a vision statement of how they want to see your son or daughter succeed in school. And so we want to make sure we're partnering with you because we see your students for long hours in a day. And so we want to partner with you as well as come up with a shared set of values and beliefs so that we can be in partnership so your students aren't hearing mixed messages. And that comes to making sure we have open lines of communication, not only with your student to the parent, but you parent to the school. So if that is the child's teacher or an administrator.
And Mr. Schwan, I think, from my perspective, if I'm reading that question correctly, I don't know that a school would require a phone because, not everybody's able to purchase a phone for their child, and that's a very personal, family-based decision. And in addition to that, all of the students, I believe, and Mr. Schwan, correct me if I'm wrong, it's third grade and above or fourth grade and above?
Third grade and above all have Chromebooks, correct.
All have access to technology through the schools. So I don't know that if I'm reading the question correctly, Graciela, the school would have, made you get or required you to get a phone for your child. I think to Mr. Schwan's point, that would be a good opportunity to check in with the school just to say, this doesn't feel right to me. Tell me more. And then the school administrator, the principal, assistant principal would be able to just give you more context. Alicia said, I think to enter Google Chrome for their class, Google Classroom, but if they don't have a laptop, they need a phone. And yes, but as Mr. Schwan mentioned, all of our students in grades third and above have access to laptops and Chromebooks that they can check out, kind of like a library book they take home, they can bring back, they have to keep it in good order, of course. And then our younger students under third grade, they do have access to technology at their classrooms, they just can't take that home. And then I do see that we have a community member who has unmuted themselves. Rosa, would you like to ask a question?
No.
Okay, then I'm going to mute you. Thank you, Rosa. Okay, Mr. Schwant, you're up again, unless any
Oh,
members have any other questions. It's all you.
okay. All right. So yeah, so positive content.
Alejandro, yo.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead, Blanca. Hi.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Fíjate que sí me pasó a mí eso el otro día que fui a la high school. Fui a sacar a mi niño y creo que el otro día teléfono, no sé, no me acuerdo bien. Y la secretaria me dijo, ¿sabes qué? Pues dijo, ¿ya le llamaste? Pues yo así como que, ¿cómo ya le llamé? Le dije, pues no le tienen que avisar. Me dijo, no, tú tienes que mandarle mensaje para que él sepa que ya estás aquí y salga.
Ah,
Y sí le dije, o sea, ¿cómo, qué pasa con los niños que no tienen un teléfono? Obviamente, pues no me dijo, no me supo dar una como razón lógica. Y entonces yo me quedo pensando, como acaban de decir, o sea, no todos los niños tienen teléfono, no todos los niños tienen esa accesibilidad. Entonces pienso que las escuelas deben de regresar a ese método de que llegan los papás y las mismas secretarias llaman a la clase porque lo dicen, es que no podemos interrumpir la clase. O sea, hace 10 años se tenía que interrumpir la clase. ¿Me
ok.
entiendes? O sea,
¿En qué escuela fue eso?
en Hillcrest.
Ok, déjame traducir.
Entonces sí me pareció un poquito así
Ya.
no quiero decir la palabra, pero no se me hizo algo correcto.
Gracias, Blanca. Déjame traducir para Mr. Schwant y para los demás personas. So, Mr. Schwant, Blanca, Miss Viveros, which, by the way, shout out to Blanca. She received an award last year through CABE for being, I think it was the best, is the name of the award, Bilingual Education Succeeding Together. Parent of the Year. So congratulations.
all right. Congratulations.
Wonderful. So what she's saying is that at Hillcrest High School, she went to pick up her child recently. And when she arrived, the front office, either secretary or clerk, asked her, have you already text your child? And she said, well, what do you mean text my child? Can't you call the classroom? And the response was, no, we don't want to interrupt the class. We'd like you to text your child to come up. And so Blanca is saying, that didn't really make sense to her because not everybody has a cell phone, and without a cell phone, how are we supposed to get access to texting our child to let them know to come to the front office for pickup? Somebody else is saying, my son. Oh, so actually, before we move on, is that a policy? I know you were administrator over at Hillcrest. Can you talk a little bit more specifically to this?
Yes. So thank you for the context, Blanca, about the particular situation that you were put into. So as far as interrupting class time, so just to touch on that point first, right? So we understand that you as a parent need to pick up your child, whether it be for appointments or things like that. Hopefully, you have communicated this to your student already, so that like, hey, we have an appointment at 12:30 in the afternoon, so I'm going to pick you up from school at 11:30. So regardless of which teacher you have, hopefully your student has taken responsibility, or that's something you can communicate to them. Hey, so I'm going to be here at 11:30. I need you to go ahead and make sure you tell your teacher that you're on your way. Now, that's one thing, but yes, the office does need to officially call the classroom to release your student. So Blanca, I know that you said that is not what happened. And so that is a policy that we are actually in the process of refining of what do notifications look like to students in the classroom, because yes, we're trying to minimize disruption of learnings so at the high school level, 35 other students in the classroom. And so we're currently looking at policies and procedures to refine minimizing those interruptions, but our hope would be these are all planned, like, so you knew you were taking your child out and your child knew that they would be signed out of school early, so they can start taking that responsibility. But I can't address your particular question because obviously I just had to take your word, and it wouldn't be fair for me to address your point without hearing the other side of it. But I would say that just that my gut would be, I hope that our students aren't having their phones out during class to receive text messages or phone calls because they're engaged in the learning. That would be my reaction to that. But I do want you to know that that is a conversation amongst our schools of how do we make sure teachers are notified or help our students remember that they are going to be called out of class to go to an appointment or somewhere else.
And Mr. Schwantz, you've already alluded to this, but I'd like to just kind of highlight and lift up that you said that we as a district are in the process of revisiting our procedures and our policies in regards to technology and cell phone use. We have Carla who wrote into the chat, my son is in high school at La Sierra and his math teacher asks for the homework in a way where the students can only turn it in with a phone or a tablet. It does seem like something the district needs to address with the school and its teachers. And so thank you for that, Carla. Yes, as Mr. Schwantz has alluded to, we're knee deep right now in what are our policies, what does the district wants to have as the official stance, and then we will definitely communicate that out to our community when that has all been done. So,
and I do also want to say that we're also we're about to formulate a cell phone task force because there has been a lot of movement from the California Department of Education, from Superintendent Tony Thurmond, about making sure that every school district has some sort of concrete policy that limits or even eliminates cell phones being present on campus. So our board doesn't have an official stance other than its current existing board policy that cell phones aren't to be used during instructional time. But there's a task force about to come together. So if you are interested in that task force, parents, we would love for you to I'm sure Dr. Cisneros will be able to share his email address or an email address or even mine. And I'd be more than happy to put your name in on interest. Obviously, we can't have hundreds of people a part of this task force. A task force will be small, but the task force will report out to the community to get their feedback at a later time.
That's fantastic. So parents, I've just put into the chat Mr. Schwantz's email. So that if you would like to be part of this task force and give us your perspective on what our cell phone official policy should be from the district, we'd love to have you on. Please feel free to send Mr. Schwantz an email. If you have my email, a lot of you all have my cell phone number. Matter of fact, I'll just put it into the chat. Send me a text and I will pass it on to Mr. Schwantz. Because, you know, we have as school leaders our own perspective as different as district leaders' perspective, teachers have their perspective, but one of the things that we know is we need you and we need your voice in order to make sure that we have all voices at the table, to make sure that we're not missing something. And then I also see that we have somebody that unmuted, somebody who's just titled iPhone. Would you like to ask a question or make a comment?
I think it's me.
Oh, yes.
I'm a parent from La Sierra student. And I have a question because my son is the first one getting into high school. I remember back ago when I was in high school, whenever we have absence, they used to call our parents to let them know. But now I know we're receiving messages. But then I called school asking why I was absent, because my son is saying that he wasn't absent, that he was late, but he was marked absent. So I know back in the years, they didn't used to mark you absent. It was like tardy. But now everything is being marked absent. And then the worst thing is, like, when I asked them, would you please send a note to let me know that he's being absent? They said, oh, have your student pick up the form at the office. I'm like, if he was absent, he's not going to go to the office and pick up the note for sure.
To that point, you know, anytime a student is absent, you will be getting either a message. A lot of times they're automated. Some schools do make phone calls. It depends office by office. We have 23 different office administrative teams, but you will be getting contacted. Now, if your child was present and was not absent and they're being marked absent, then I think you did the exact right thing, is letting the school office know, they were actually here today. And then the school will work with you, whether it's a form or what the exact policy is. Again, that varies from school to school in different levels. But I would say is if you are still having an issue with trying to get an absence cleared, then just put in a quick email to your site principal, let them know that, hey, this is the issue that we're seeing, or ask for an appointment and just get that resolved. Because whether it's you said back in the day, Mr. Schwant and I were actually the exact same age. It's been a while since we've been in high school as well. But whether it was back then or now, we do still have a policy where if a child is present, they're going to be marked as present. If they were late, then they're just marked as late. But if they were there, they're not going to be marked as absent. If they are, to correct that.
Okay, that's good to know.
It looks like you're at work, so thank you for even taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. We appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you for yours. No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schwant, we received another question in the chat or comment. For emergencies, I think phones are important for kids to have in the classroom, or a phone for the classroom for the office to use. And I feel like the computers the school gives each student is specifically for students to give homework. I've never been asked to buy my son a school. I think that meant a phone. I've never been asked to buy my son a phone.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's, every classroom does have a phone with an extension that the school office can call. And it's not a cell phone. I don't know if you guys can see, it's one of these bad boys. Every single classroom, every single office has one of these, and we're able to call it. So if your child does not have a cell phone, and there is, some sort of emergency, or to Ms. Viveros's point, if you need to pick them up and they don't have a cell phone, the office can and should and will call the teacher. I know that when I was a principal, I did all I could to avoid disruptions, because we want to make sure the teacher is focused, the students are focused. But sometimes, we need to call a student up to the office for a million different reasons. We do the interruption, we make it quick, and the child leaves. If there's an emergency or I need to get in touch with the teacher for any reason, we have these phones and we call directly. So Alicia, thank you. I think you have it exactly correct. You're up, Mr. Schwant. Back to you.
Nice. All right. So no, thank you guys for the discussion. So obviously this isn't we have all the answers, we move forward.
Mr. Schwant, I'm sorry. Blanca has just raised her hand. Go ahead, Blanca.
Ay, disculpen. Yo sé que es un poquito complicado en el aspecto de que sí, si el maestro está dando una instrucción, pues llamarle por teléfono, pues obviamente corta la atención de los alumnos, el ambiente. Entonces, sí, Alejandro, como dices tú, tienes razón, es decirle a nuestros hijos, ¿sabes qué? Te voy a recoger a tal hora porque tienes cita con el doctor o como sea, ¿no? Pero si los muchachos, tal vez, no sé, si los muchachos ya saben, tal vez que los muchachos, como acaban de decir, que sean un poquito más responsables y que yo diga, ¿sabe qué, maestro? Me voy a ir a tal hora, ¿no? Pues ya el maestro está consciente que posiblemente a esa hora le va a sonar el teléfono. No sé, es un poquito, la verdad que sí es bien complicado de una parte del otro, porque nosotros los padres, pues, queremos que la escuela, se pueda decir, actúe, pero pues también de nuestro lado tenemos que hacer las cosas correctas. Entonces, como en la primaria, pues en la primaria, cuando yo ocupo algo, yo le mando al maestro mensaje por Parent Square. Y el maestro nos dijo, nosotros yo checo los mensajes, creo que dijo que en receso, en lonche, y dijo otro horario. Entonces, algo así se podría manejar nada más como Para una emergencia, realmente que sea emergencia, pues sí, no se puede interrumpir la clase, pero si no es emergencia, tal vez se puede hacer como ciertos tiempos de que, ok, quieres sacar a tu hijo, puedes sacarlo en tal tiempo, en tal horario, algo así, no sé. Sí.
So let me translate that into English. So what Ms. Viveros was saying, and I'm getting a deeper appreciation for Yvonne because now I have to translate all of that and remember everything that she said because Ms. Viveros brought up a lot of points. So thank you, Ms. Viveros. She was saying that yes, as parents, it is up to us to communicate that to our child to let them know I'm going to pick you up at a certain day, as you suggested, Mr. Schwantz, certain day, certain time, and the child will then let the teacher know, hey, just heads up, I might get picked up. And then when the parent actually shows up, I have trouble, Mr. Schwant, personally, giving out the message, parents text your child, let them know that you're there, because that students aren't supposed to have their cell phones out. So I think the message should be, but again, this is part of the task force. So, take it, this is Alejandro, not the district talking. You go to the front office, you let them know, and then they will reach out to the child's teacher to bring them out of class. She's saying, in elementary school, what she does or what she did is she would just send a message to the teacher through Parent Square, and the teacher would respond either during their prep, during their recess, during their lunchtime, whenever they had opportunity. So it's just about having that dialogue.
Right, and we want to have a consistent message, so it's not, oh, well, my daughter in elementary school has this rule, my son in middle school has this different procedure, and then my oldest daughter in high school, their office does something different too. We want to have a unified,
Correct.
This is our policy and procedure, so that no matter whatever Salvord school your child happens to go to, or if you have multiple students, the right way to communicate to the school.
Yeah, correct. And I think, I'd like to, without getting too much into, specific cases and details, because we are formulating this task force and there have been a lot of different situations that have arisen, I would say, let's let the issue of cell phones kind of lie for now, up until we, as a district and with your partnership parents, are able to come up with the task force, have all that dialogue, and then present our findings. So Mr. Schwant, back to you for finishing up the presentation.
No, thank you. And again, parents, I really appreciate the dialogue and the questions, because that's going to, this kind of context really helps us make a great and unified policy and procedure. All right, let me go back to sharing the screen here. All right, so as a part of digital well-being, another big part of it is to unplug more often. It seems that our usage of technology and devices doesn't ever go down. It only seems to increase because there's some other great app that's been available on our phones, not only just for our students, but for we as adults. There's that great TV show that we can watch for hours and hours and hours on end. But one of the biggest topics, I know that me being a site administrator, was our students not getting a good night's rest, because we as parents understand the point, I need to go to bed, but do you have those structures and rules in your home so that when you go to bed, are your students able to access technology? And they don't have that self-control built into them yet, and they might just be on their phone watching content for hours and hours and not get a good night's sleep for the next day. So making sure you utilize tools on your phone. So Google is one of the co-creators of the Android operating system. Apple and iOS devices have something very similar, but you can actually set parameters so that digital devices will actually lock and turn off at a certain time of night. So at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever you decide is best for your family, you can actually set permissions for your child's devices to not work at a certain time. You could obviously also just take the devices from the students and hold on to them. Or one way that I have actually used with my own children is I partner with my kids and say, all right, it's 8 o'clock. It's time to put our devices to bed. right? So there's a special place where they tuck in their device and they plug them in the charge, and it's going to sleep. And it's no longer allowed to be used because the device is sleeping and you are about to go to sleep. So they start their bedtime routine. And obviously, I used a very child example, but the same applies for an older teenager, right? Hey, it's time for your device to be done. You're going to go set that aside, charge it up so it's ready for tomorrow morning. Let's get ready for bed. So whatever that structure looks like, make sure you kind of set that very explicit rule so that, again, you can have those healthy relationships. And it's not you taking the device and hiding it away from your student, but it's that shared ownership of we're all going to do this because we all need to wind down. It's not only good for students, it's good for us adults too. So this particular page talks about how do you set do not disturb, how to switch off work, how to send an auto reply. So a lot of good information here on this Google website. Going back here. Oh,
I didn't know that we could have the device just kind of shut off and not be used. Carla's saying once it's set up, the time you set locks the device and they become expensive paperweights. It's a funny thing to say. So they just can't use it anymore. And I had my daughter had a cell phone all throughout college, high school. I didn't know this was a thing. I would just take it from her. But I didn't know that we could have had this as an option. That's beautiful. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. And I'm looking at the chat and see that parents are aware of this, and that's really good. So, and there are parents who have done their homework and research or know exactly where to look. But I'm sure there's some of you right now that are like, "What? I want to know more. How can I figure this out?" So, this is that link I sent you for Wellbeing for Google. Maybe at the end I'll poke around for iOS. How does that work for Apple devices? Because I know that's a very popular phone choice as well. And I can send that link in the chat before we end today. But to wrap up, again, we could talk about social media. I know we can kind of go down a big conversation to this. And notice how the conversation has used social media meaningfully and responsibly. It doesn't say don't use social media or ban it from your house. You can make that decision at our school sites. We don't leverage social media or use social media for the purposes of students interacting with content, but we do teach them, of course, using it meaningfully and responsibly, but also the power of being able to share information to more than just your partner in class or just to your entire class. There's a global audience now. Students are making some very powerful, incredible projects, videos, information guides that could be used by students all around the world. And how do you actually get out or disseminate that information? Social media can be a very powerful tool for that. But I feel like a lot of us hear the negative, right? Students are being bullied, they're being attacked, they're being threatened. And again, kind of like going back to the example of cars, right? We don't look at a car and say, wow, you're being so responsible on the road. Oh, you gave such great following distance, or you use your turn signal. Normally we look for the negative because it seems, oh, that's going to be interesting, or what thing's going to happen next. And so you as a parent, we along with we at the schools, showing how to use social media or our voice meaningfully and responsibly. Making gaming a positive experience. So we touched on that at the very beginning, and that's how I wanted to end off today. Because a lot of students, when they compete in games, so it could be online games, offline games, games in the classroom, every student wants to win, right? So we either have the knowledge or the skill or the strength, whatever it happens to be, to succeed and be the champion, the number one, first place. But what happens when that doesn't happen? I'm sure, can recall an example, maybe even in your own home, of students not being able to handle losing, or when someone wins, they're not being a very good sport, or even when they lose, they're not a very good sport. So throwing tantrums, running out of the room, throwing objects, physical harm to objects, or even people. So one of the important things about gaming positively, and even just in activities outside of digital games, is how do we handle losing? How do we handle when things don't go our way? Like I've said kind of a couple of times, and I'll say it again, students are looking to us as adults to how do we handle adversity, setbacks, when things don't go right. So the way the things that we say, how many times have students repeated the things we've said, whether they might be curse words or phrases when we're upset? And where do they learn that? From us. I know you might say, oh, well, they might have heard it from a student or from a friend at school. True, but what are they being reinforced with? I know one of the big topics at all of our schools as we prepare students for college or career after high school is that professional conduct or professional discourse. I know that it seems very far between because students are interacting with each other. But we at the schools, especially in our classrooms, are trying to reinforce professional dialogue. We want our students to be ready for a professional setting, whether that be for college or career, so that they know how to dialogue and converse with their fellow employees, their boss one day. So we want to make sure we're having that professional conduct. That's what's happening in our homes. Our students being reinforced with that professional conduct and speech so that they know how to react or engage when things don't go their way. So that kind of goes back to that family tech planner of when you have those conversations, what's the best way to show frustration, talk things out? And so gaming being a positive experience, gaming is a great way for when students fail at something, teaching, they usually just say, oh, that's all right, I'm going to try again. They hit the restart button, they say restart level, and they go for it. So that's one thing that video games can actually help teach our students, or even quizzes or tests. Quizzes or tests in our school sites, students look at it and say, oh, I didn't do so well, let me try again. And when things don't go our way, I hope that that is the attitude that we're able to model for them as well, that failure isn't fatal is the phrase. Failure isn't fatal. It's just an opportunity to try again.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that is the value that's being instilled at our homes as well. So Dr. Cisneros, the last thing I'd want to kind of share with you guys would be, so we just finished Digital Citizenship Week. So that was this past week of our students actually going through different lessons and activities to talk about the major big points of digital citizenship. Actually, let me click on here so you guys can see that. So media balance, online privacy, digital footprint, communication, cyberbullying, news and media literacy. So hopefully you've had a chance to dialogue with your students about these topics, or when they heard about them in school, they came home with those resources. But this is the last thing I want to share with you. And of course, like I said, I'll go back to the Apple one. But these are the family resources for digital citizenship. So SEL, that's a common acronym in education for social emotional learning in digital life family conversations. Notice how there's a K through 5 conversation that's available in English and Spanish, grade 6 through 12. And then there's family tips on how to incorporate digital citizenship, family activities to incorporate some of those lessons. And then here are some other family resources. So Tech Planners, Kids in Tech video series. So I hope you utilize this resource to begin your conversations in your home. And like I said from the very beginning of this webinar, that you realize that every conversation needs to start somewhere, and that we in the classrooms, we follow a scope and sequence or a lesson plan to have those. We as parents also need kind of like sentence starters, conversation starters to how do I begin that conversation in my home? I hope that these resources can help you begin those conversations, help our students with their digital well-being. So, Dr. Cisneros, any questions from the chat while we wrap up here, while I find that link about Apple devices?
As of now, no. I did receive a private message from a parent who says, my child has autism, he needs his phone. And so I think that goes through the same sort of consideration that we were going to be addressing with the cell phone task force that we're going to be creating. So again, if you look a little bit further up in the chat, families, I've provided you with Mr. Schwant's direct email, and then also with my direct cell phone number, so that you can reach out to us if you would like to be part of the task force, if you would like to join us. Because, you know, every child is different, every situation is different. So we want to make sure that we are being supportive of the students, of their learning, also of respectful of our parents' wishes. So there's a lot to contend with, but we really do want to make sure that parents, you have an opportunity to join us. We have about 5 more minutes. Mr. Schwant's presentation is officially concluded, but we'd like to know, parents, do you have any additional questions? You can turn on your microphone and ask. Any lingering comments that you still would like to make? Great. Mr. Schwant, hearing none, I will let you off the hook early. You got about 4 minutes back in your life.
Well, I mean, this is great. I can take 4 minutes to tell you about my Tupperware scheme. Just kidding. Just kidding.
No. This is digital well-being. That's the point of this message.
No, and parents, no, I do want to say thank you on behalf of all of our teachers and administrators, our front office staff. By you attending this webinar, I know you are looking for resources or affirmations of how to support your students. And so I want to say a huge thank you for taking time to do that with us here tonight. So a round of applause for both of you.
Woo! And then,
or all of you. And of course, Miss Yvonne in interpretation, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Yvonne.
And Dr. Cisneros, thank you for the invite to share with our parents tonight. It has been a pleasure and an honor. And parents, should you have any questions about how to better support your students with technology, of course, I would love to take all the selfish credit and say, reach out to me. Your best resource is to make sure you connect with your teacher and your student's teacher. And if they don't know the answers, they have been instructed to come contact me so that I can support them. Because I want you to have those strong connections with your teachers, your school site administrators. And then if they don't know answers, that's where Dr. Cisneros and myself step in for them, because we want to resource them, because you should be interacting with them on a very regular basis. So thank you, parents, for a great time. And as I like to do, Dr. Cisneros, the window is closing.
Oh, wait. No. Keep it open.
Okay.
Just before we close off, I want to give a reminder to parents that we're having these webinars just about weekly. I hope you're not tired of us just yet. We are providing a lot of what we feel is really valuable information, like the presentation last week with our Assistant Director of Educational Technology, Mr. Schwant, and again today. Next week on the 30th, we have developmental milestones for school-aged children. This is a presentation that will be led by Riverside County Office of Education. They have an organization called, I think it's CareSpace, and CareSpace provides support for parents. They provide therapy and group counseling and individual counseling, but one of the other services that they provide to the school district is these presentations. So this is provided next week by a marriage and family therapist. And then we have the rest for this upcoming semester. If there is something that you parents say, you know, I wish they would tell me more about this, please reach out to me, send me a text, an email, and let me know what it is that you would like for me to bring to you. It could be anything that's school related, you know, supporting with math, supporting with language arts, supporting with mental health. We've had Dia de los Muertos, art classes in the past. We've had connections with local government agencies. This is really for us to kind of build for you. So if there's something that you say, we want this, Alejandro, let me know, and I will get it, make it happen for you for next semester. We do have a couple of comments in the chat. Thank you for a lot of great information, Mr. Schwant. You're getting a lot of kudos. And now we have somebody saying bullying. Somebody else said bullying. So we could bring a presentation on bullying, how to support your child if they're going through bullying, how to identify what bullying is, how to partner with the school. Sports, Graciela, I'm not sure what you mean by sports. We can definitely, if I understand correctly, maybe talk about what the different sports programs are throughout the district. We can do that. Homelessness, absolutely. We're already planning something like that. How to support our students with that are highly mobile or unhoused. Yes, we're planning that for next semester. How to support our children with special needs. We do have. Let me bring this back up for you. We had one already, SELPA and Community Resources. SELPA is a special education local PA. I'm not sure what the PA stands for, but it was a special education presentation. We will be having a presentation on ADHD facts and myths. So if that's what you mean with special education, yes. But also for next semester, we have 2 presentations in partnership with the Director of Special Education, Ms. Michelle Sebastian. Beautiful. And Elizabeth saying, parents, please donate canned goods to the school. Yes, I love that, Elizabeth, calling out our parents to partner with us so we can make sure that all of our students that are homeless and hungry are fed. Thank you so much. And with that, Mr. Schwant, I've actually taken 1 extra minute out of your life. I am so
You know what? For our parents, it's worth it, Dr. Cisneros. It's worth it.
Beautiful. Thank you, everybody. Have a good